Mr. President. Of Senate Bill number 2221 and House Bill 7325. This is the bill on the Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers. And with the permission of the body, I move to recognize the chairman of the Senate panel, Honorable Senator Rafi Tulfo, to give us the highlights of the conference committee report.
Senator Tulfo is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Migrant Workers and the chairperson of the Senate panel, I have the honor to present the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2221 entitled An Act Providing for the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers, and House Bill number 7325 entitled An Act Instituting the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. The Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of the Senate Bill number 2221 and House Bill number 7325 of December 13, 2023, in effect, is hereby withdrawn. The Senate and the House panels met last May 20, 2024, to discuss and come up with a reconciled and improved version of the reconsidered bill, which was referred to both houses for further review. Mr. President, I would like to thank our fellow conferees from the Senate President Jesus Cordero himself, who was still a conferee when this BICAM report was adopted and prior to his election. Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Amy Marcos, Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, and Deputy Minority Floor Leader Riza Hontiveros, and our conferees from the House of Representatives, led by the new chairperson of the House Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs, Representative Jude Asidre, together with Representatives Marisa Del Mar Magsino, Sandro Gonzalez, Kaimer Adan Olaso, and Marlene Premicias Agabas as members of their collaborative effort and patience in order to come up with this bicameral report. Thus, it is my honor to report to this body, Mr. President, the following. Number one, the conferees agreed to adopt the reconsidered bill on the matter as the working draft, with the primary goal of addressing concerns regarding coverage of the bill. Number two, A Section 3, objectives was created. Number three, Section 4, coverage was amended to focus on Filipino seafarers on board ships, vessels plying international waters, added a provision to address the concerns of international ships governed by a specific agreement, which reads as follows. For ships or vessels plying international waters but are governed by international treaties or agreements, the same shall be observed, and the pertinent agencies shall exercise regulatory provisions over the seafarers on board, subject to appropriate guidelines and conditions that may be issued by the Department of Transportation, Marina, DMW, DOLE, and other concerned agencies. Number four, a new Section 5, applicability of this act to domestic seafarers, was created to clarify which sectors are applicable only to domestic seafarers. Number 5, Section 6, definition of terms. New terms were defined. A, domestic maritime degree. B, international maritime degree. C, ladderization. D, seafarer, and excluded cadets in the definition. While the term employment contract was deleted, 6 on Section 7, right to just terms and conditions of work, clarified medical care for domestic and overseas seafarers. Number 7, on Section 9, right to educational advancement and training at reasonable and affordable cost, placed Marina ahead of CHED and NMP in development of GOD curriculum. Number 8, on Section 11, right to information of a seafarer's family or next of kin, clarified role of DMW and DOLE over overseas and domestic seafarers, respectively. Number 9, on Section 12, right to safe passage and safe travel, changed third countries to other countries. Number 10, Section 22, right to a fair medical assessment. 28, pre-employment medical examination, PEME, and 29, medical certificate, clarified medical needs of overseas and domestic seafarers. Number 11, on Section 30, training and qualifications, clarified the required training and qualifications for overseas and domestic seafarers upon the recommendation of Marina DOTR. Number 12, overseas seafarers under titles of the following chapters. Chapter 6, manning agencies for overseas seafarers. Chapter 9, medical care and maritime occupational safety and health standards for overseas seafarers. Chapter 10, termination of employment of overseas seafarers. Chapter 11, dispute resolution for overseas seafarers. Chapter 12, repatriation for overseas seafarers. Chapter 13, reintegration for overseas seafarers. 13 on Chapter 8, accommodation, recreational and sanitation facilities, food and catering in ocean-going ships. The title was amended to clarify its application to ocean-going ships. 14, we removed all sections related to domestic Filipino seafarers except the section on rescue and converted it into a separate chapter, which now reads, Chapter 14, Emergency Rescue of Domestic Seafarers. 15, on Chapter 17, Green Lane for Overseas and Domestic Seafarers. We rewarded the title and revised the language. 16, under Chapter 18, Education and Training of Seafarers and Cadets. The jurisdiction of Marina over maritime education was clarified and roles itemized, and the section on Curriculum Committee was deleted. Number 17, on Section 57, a second paragraph was amended and a new third paragraph was added as proposed by the House panel and adopted by the Bicameral Conference Committee to read as follows. The third doctor's assessment shall strictly adhere to the schedule of disabilities as provided in the standard employment contract or the applicable collective bargaining agreement as warranted. The title of the section was also amended to read Determination of Disability, Grading, or Fitness to Work. 18. The Section 59 of the recalled bill was deleted as approved and adopted by the Bicameral Conference Committee. 19. Section 16, or Section 17, rather, crew competence was amended to add marina. 20. On Section 28, compliance and certification amended to clarify the issuance of a maritime labor certificate and the certificate of compliance for domestic ships by DOLE. 21. On Section 69, inspection and enforcement amended to distinguish inspection and enforcement of ships under three different categories to clarify. 22, created a new Section 74, jurisdiction over maritime education, to clarify the jurisdiction of Marina and CHED with respect to the education and training of cadets. Succeeding Section 75 and 76 were likewise adjusted to reflect changes made on Section 74. 23, Section 77, requirements for maritime higher education institutions, amended by removing the percentage requirements for training slots. The same was made on Section 78 for Philippine registered ships. 24, on Section 85, role of government agencies. The roles of CHED, DFA, DMW, DOH, DOLE, Marina, and NLRC were adjusted in line with changes introduced in the entire bill. 25, on Section 85, G, National Conciliation and Mediation Board was added as another concerned agencies with specific role. 26, Section 85J, role of OWA was amended to include giving of free legal assistance to its member seafarers. Number 27, a new Section 94, creating offices and hiring appropriate personnel, was created for Marina and other concerned agencies to ensure the effective implementation of these acts. Mr. President, allow me to emphasize again that this Magna Carta of Seafarers is not the final law that we will work on to protect our seafarers. We commit to addressing concerns regarding the efficacy of the Seafarers Protection Act and to review and amend the necessary provisions of the Labor Code. Especially on the rules of procedure for both NLRC and NCMB, such that appeals and judgment in maritime cases shall be more attuned to the pressing concerns of our seafarers and maritime stakeholders. Mr. President, I now move that we approve the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2221 and House Bill number 7325 on an act providing for Magna Carta of Seafarers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? Senator Villanueva is recognized.
This is not an objection, Mr. President. May I just be allowed to make a very short manifestation, Mr.
The
President?
gentleman may proceed.
Thank you very much being part of this measure where we all of us work very, very hard. Isang malaking karangalan po, Ginoong Pangulo, para sa atin na maging parte din ng Bicameral Conference Committee ng panukalang ito, ang Magna Carta o Filipino Seafarers. Isang batas po na para sa proteksyon ng ating mahigit kumulang na 580,000 na marino sa iba't ibang dako ng mundo. Sa wakas po, Ginoong Pangulo, ay magkakaroon na ng isang tunay na Magna Carta para sa ating mga marino matapos ang halos 2 dekadang pakikipaglaban po dito. Nagpapasalamat po tayo sa ating pinuno kay Senator Rafi Tulfo, the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Migrant Workers, dahil karamihan po sa ating mga isinulong at ipinanukala na mga probisyon ay nanatiling nakapaloob sa BICAM report ng Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. Just to put on record, Mr. President, kasama dito yung pag-align ng mga probisyon ng Magna Carta sa Republic Act number 11641 o ang Department of Migrant Workers Act, pagpapatibay ng maritime occupational safety and health standards, paglalatag ng Green Lane protocols, pagkakaroon ng transition at support programs para sa mga marino na hindi pa muli nakakasampa sa barko, at pagpapalawak po sa lambong ng proteksyon sa ating mga seafarers na sadyang exposed po sa abuso, exploitation at unfair labor practice. Mr. President, I just want to put on record, and I'm very happy to join the gentleman from Isabela and Davao in reporting to the body that we emphasize that the Commission on Higher Education maintains jurisdiction over maritime higher education institutions, which is consistent po, Mr. President, with Section 3, Letter D of the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers, which refers to CHED's policies and rules on education of maritime students and training cadets. And furthermore, Mr. President, last but not the least, yung Marinas Administration over maritime education should be interpreted in conjunction with the mandate of the CHED pursuant to RA 7722 or the Higher Education Act of 1994. Mr. President, sa pangkalahatan, ang panukala pong ito ay isang katibayan ng ating pagpapahalaga sa ating mga marino. Ito po ay pagpapatunay sa ating dedikasyon na itaas ang dignidad at antas ng pamumuhay ng ating overseas at domestic seafarers, ang ating mga bagong bayani. Kaya, Mr. President, sinasamahan ko po ang motion ng ating kasamahan para iratipika ang nasabing panukala. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
The
Mr. President,
remarks of the gentleman from Bulacan are duly noted and well taken.
Mr. President,
The Deputy Minority Leader is seeking the floor.
Mr. President, may I also move that the joint explanation of the conference committee be inserted into the records of the Senate?
The chair will defer action on the motion until we have heard Senator Hontiveros, and thereafter we will act on the same. Senator Hontiveros is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am.
Salamat, Mr. President, at magandang gabi po. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and to say thank you and to give credit where credit is due. Unang-una, salamat kay Chair Rafi Tulfo sa kanyang paninindigan at pagsisikap para maayos ang ilang issues tungkol sa bond. Alam ko sa puso niya, tulad ko, dapat ang Magna Carta of Seafarers should serve the interest of all Filipino seafarers. Salamat din sa aking Minority Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, sa pagsuporta at sa pakikiisa sa tunay na diwa ng batas na ito, at kay Senator Joel Villanueva sa kanyang walang sawang suporta sa mga issues ng mga manggagawa, partikular sa mga marino, kay Comsec Alan at sa mga masisipag nating mga legis staff sa kanilang ambag at sakripisyo para mabuo ang Magna Carta of Seafarers. The Magna Carta of Seafarers is very close to my heart because every Filipino seafarer deserves greater protection from abuses and violations of their rights and welfare. This law is for every overseas Filipino worker seafarer who has been called a modern-day hero because of his or her economic contributions through remittances, and most importantly, because of their sacrifices in being homesick to give a comfortable life to their loved ones. Narinig namin kayo, mga kababayan. Hindi sapat na manatili lamang silang mga buhay na bayani habang sila ay nakikipagsapalaran at nagbabanat ng buto sa karagatan na walang sapat na batas na magtataguyod ng kanilang mga karapatan at proteksyon. At sa wakas, ngayon ay magiging isang ganap na batas na. The Magna Carta should be the anchor of every Filipino. No one should be left behind, including cadets. Every Filipino seafarer's rights should be protected in accordance with international labor organizations, Maritime Labor Convention, and most especially with the Philippine Constitution. Sabi ko nga kanina, give credit where credit is due. at isang taus-pusong at walang humpay na pasasalamat at pagpupugay sa ating mga Filipino seafarers. Kayo po talaga ang bida dito, higit sa lahat. Mabuhay ang bawat overseas Filipino worker, mabuhay ang bawat marinong Filipino. Saludo ako sa inyong pagsisikap. Patuloy kaming susuporta sa inyong kapakanan at seguridad kasama ng inyong pamilya. Maraming pong salamat, Mr. President.
Sir, thanks, the distinguished lady, and her remarks are duly noted and well taken. Now, acting on the previous motions of
Yes, Mr. President.
Majority Leader is recognized.
Corollary to the motion of Senator Tulfo, I move that we approve and ratify the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 2221 and House Bill 7325, and let the text of the joint explanation be deemed read into the records of the chamber. So moved, Mr. President.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the same is approved. The Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2221 and House Bill number 7325 is hereby approved on and ratified. Senate President Zubiri is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Senate President Scudero. No, just a point of information. Under your leadership, under my leadership, we had several measures that we passed and ratified that was returned or, well, asked by Malacanang to bring it back to us. I hope that we can, and this will happen with the Magna Carta for Seafarers. I feel bad for Senator Raffy, to be honest. Kasi nasa Malacanang na tayo, pumunta tayo doon para pirmahan itong Magna Carta for Seafarers, only to be told 5 minutes before the signing that it was not going to be signed by the President and to be returned to the Senate BICAM or the Senate and House BICAM panel because of certain issues. I feel for our members here. For example, another one is the maritime law of Senator Tolentino, which again was requested by the Executive Secretary's office to be returned once again to the BICAM body of both houses. Just an information to help the new administration of the Senate President is maybe we can appeal to the PLLO to work with BICAM panels already kasi kung may problema habang maaga pa lang kasi hindi maganda tignan, rinatify natin tapos diktahan tayo ng Malacanang. Usually, alam naman po natin yan, Senate President, usually pag pinadala natin dyan, it's are usually signed or lapsed into law, or really if there's objectionable provisions, they will veto it. But if they can work with us, we appeal to Malacanang through the PLLO, if they can work with the Senate already as early as the Bicameral Conference Committee meetings so that hindi na po natin kailangan ibalik dito sa Senado at sa Kongreso. So just a point of information, my dear Senate President, I'm sure Dong Mendoza is a good friend of ours. Maybe they can assign more people to make sure that the Bicameral Conference Committee, during the hearings of the Bicameral Conference Committee, they participate so that it doesn't have to be returned to the Senate in case there are questionable provisions by the Executive Department. So yun lamang po.
Thank you, Mr.
The
President.
point of information of Senate President Zubiri is well taken and noted.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may also, just to echo the sentiments of our former Senate President Zubiri, it's quite disheartening, Mr. President, and disappointing that in the past, if I'm not mistaken, 6 months, Mr. President, there are 3 measures, dalawa po enrolled bills na, Mr. President, pinabalik po sa atin. Pangalawa, yung isa po, katatapos lang ng bicameral Conference Committee report, ni-ratify po natin, pinabalik po ulit. So, ang question natin, Mr. President, is where's PLO all along, di ba? Kasi kung nababantayan po ito, at least, Mr. President, alam po natin, Mr. President, sabi nga po ni Senator Cayetano, imungkahi ko daw po sa mga batas, lagay din natin na no U-turn. Thank you, Mr. President.
The remarks of the gentleman from Bulacan are well taken. And let copies of the statements they made be furnished to the PLLO, although I see him within hearing distance. Majority Leader is
Mr.
recognized.
President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution 1037.
There is a motion. Hearing no objection, the same is approved. Secretary General is directed to read the title of the measure.
Resolution commending Honorable Joel Villanueva for his invaluable contribution to the performance of the Senate and for ably steering the proceedings of the Senate in the first and second regular sessions of the 19th Congress of the Philippines.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt proposed resolution 1037.
Prior to the motion, except for Senator Villanueva, may I include as as co-authors all the members present, unless with the exclusion of Senator Villanueva.
Of course, Mr. President, I'd be
Mr.
delighted
President.
to have
To
you
be
as co-author.
excluded, to be excluded. or-
Excluded?
I said not to be included because
Not
it's
to
in your.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, may we recognize Senator Joel Villanueva to deliver his sponsorship speech.
Senator Villanueva is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I rise with deep sadness to sponsor proposed Senate Resolution number 1035, expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of Apostle Arsenio T. Ferriol, founder of the Pentecostal Missionary Church of Christ, Fort Watch, Mr. President. Mr. President, Apostle Ferriol generously shared his faith and wisdom to other Christian leaders and his time to the Jesus is Lord Church by attending many of our events. He served, Mr. President, as the good man of the house and chief executive minister of the PMCC Fort Watch. During his lifetime, Apostle Ferriol was the epitome of a good, faithful, and wise ambassador of the kingdom of God, dedicating his life to God, the church, and his family. Under his leadership, the PMCC Fort Watch has launched national and global evangelistic churches in different parts of the world, providing spiritual nourishment, enlightenment, and fellowship among its members. The church has grown into 1,000 local and global locations with presence in almost every major city and province in the Philippines and in more than 70 countries all over the world. Mr. President, his passing is undeniably a great loss to the Christian community, but he leaves behind a legacy that will inspire and guide Christians for generations to come. We offer our condolences to his family, the Pentecostal Ministry Church of Christ, the Fort Watch, and to all the Christians worldwide who have been touched by his life and his faith. Let me end, Mr. President, by quoting Matthew chapter 25, verse 21, where God said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo, and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Senator Villanueva. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I like
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, these are short amendments which we worked on for many hours with the staff of Senator Villar, our sponsor. But for the information of the body, so those who are interested may follow, these amendments are with respect to the jurisdiction of FDA and bureaus under the Department of Agriculture for clarification, Mr. President. So my first amendment will start on page 13, line 30. Delete the word processing and replace it with handling.
Wala,
Submit.
dito yun.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept the amendment. Ito ba yun? Yun supposed to be, babasahin ko.
The proposed amendment having been accepted, the same is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next item is number 2 on the same page 13, line 30. Delete the phrase process livestock and poultry produce and replace it with post-harvest stages.
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
The proposed amendment having been accepted by the sponsor is hereby
Saan ba yun? Walang nakasunod.
approved and adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next amendment is on page 15. And this is on line 4. Delete the phrase processed meat products, comma, meat processing and replace it with post-harvest stages. We submit.
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
The proposed amendment having been accepted by the sponsor is hereby approved and adopted.
Thank you. Mr. President, on page 15, line 8, after the word establishments, insert the phrase in the primary production and post-harvest stages.
Okay.
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
The proposed amendment having been accepted by the sponsor is hereby approved and adopted.
And then still on page 15, delete lines 26 to 29 and replace it with, in accordance with Republic Act number 10611 or the Food Security Act of 2013. The DA shall continue to regulate the primary production and post-harvest stages of the food supply chain.
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
The proposed amendment, having been accepted by the sponsor, is hereby approved and adopted.
Ano? Eh, ba't ito
Mr.
binigay
President,
niya
just
sa-
for the record,
Ano babasahin?
the rationale for the amendments is because these processed meats are considered health products that are regulated by the FDA to ensure safety and quality to protect public health. I move on, Mr. President, to my next amendment, which is still on page 15, lines 30 to 32. And it goes on to page 16. So the amendment is delete lines 30 to 32 on page 15 and lines 1 to 11 on page 16, thereby deleting the entire section 13.
What does the sponsor say?
I accept.
The proposed amendment, having been accepted by the sponsor, is hereby approved and adopted.
Eh, anong babasahin?
And for the record, the rationale for this amendment is to ensure that we lodge the veterinary drugs and products, the regulation of veterinary drugs and products would continually be lodged with the FDA. Thank you, Mr. President.
The remarks of the lady are noted.
Can we ask her to repeat that last amendment?
It was not an amendment, distinguished sponsor. It was a
Explanation.
rationale behind the proposed amendment.
Okay. We accept. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next set of amendments will start on page 17, line 31. So I have page 17, line 31, and line 32. And then it goes on to the next page, which is page 18 and line 1. So I will read this together. On page 17, line 31, after the word all, insert the word local.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Thank you, Mr.
The proposed
President.
amendment, having been accepted, it is hereby approved and adopted.
On page 17, line 32, delete the word including.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
And on page 18, line 1, delete the phrase but not limited to domestic and international trading.
What does the
accept.
sponsor say? Having
Yeah.
been accepted, same is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 18, after line 17, insert the following paragraphs. Within 150 days from the effectivity of this act, the FDA and BAFS shall harmonize the standards and guidelines for the regulation of local milk and milk products. Next paragraph. Within 120 days from the effectivity of standards and guidelines, the FDA shall complete the capacitation of NDA in the implementation of the food safety standards and guidelines for the regulation of local milk and milk products. Next paragraph. Upon determination by FDA on the capability of NDA to fully implement the standards and guidelines set by the FDA and BAFS, the FDA may deputize the NDA in the inspection, licensing, and monitoring of establishments and the registration and monitoring of local milk and milk products. Next paragraph. The FDA shall exercise supervision over NDA's compliance with the standards and guidelines set by the FDA and BAFS. We submit, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Still on page 18, line 18, after the word functions, insert the phrase with respect to locally produced milk and milk products. We submit.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
Still on page 18, line 18, delete the phrase other agencies and replace with FDA.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
On page 20, line 3, after the word exchange, delete the word exportation and replace with the phrase packaging, exportation of milk and milk products.
What does
We
the sponsor say?
accept. We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those are my amendments. We recognize that the sponsor would really like this measure passed, and so we worked for many hours with her staff, which I would like to express my gratitude to come up with the amendments. We would like to express our concern, though, that it is a very strong bill that is intended to strengthen local industries, which we fully support, Mr. President. We support the desire of the sponsor to strengthen the local dairy industry, which we feel is the step in the right direction. But this representation, having chaired the Committee on Health and having handled the budget of health for many years, strongly feels that the regulatory process must be in place and that the jurisdiction of FDA must be respected. If there is a need to push FDA, if they're not doing their job, then the proper actions can be taken, Mr. President, but the solution, which we thank the sponsor for accepting, is not to transfer the jurisdiction to a different agency. So on that note, Mr. President, I just also would like to express the concern of DOH that they be given more time to study this measure because of the repercussions. But we have informed them of our opportunity we've had to work with the sponsor, and some of the changes we made have just been made now without the opportunity to consult with DOH. But I leave it up to them to also follow the proceedings, Mr. President, as they have been duly informed. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Sponsor.
We thank the distinguished ladies of the floor. Majority Leader.
We recognize Senator Lauren Ligarda to make her amendments.
Mr. President, Senator Ligarda a while ago indicated her, may we know the preference of the Honorable Ligarda? Will it be today or
Today.
a later date?
Today.
The lady from Antique and Malabon is recognized for her proposed
Ito naman si Philippine.
amendments.
Yeah, today.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the good sponsor, Senator Cynthia Villar, I wish to propose the following amendments on Senate Bill number 2558. On page 2, line 10, insert an additional policy as follows. The state shall protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature, and in so doing, recognize and apply a true value system, including social and environmental cost implications relative to the utilization, development, and conservation of our natural heritage. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept,
Thank
Mr.
you.
President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The proposed amendment having been accepted by the distinguished sponsor, same is hereby approved and adopted.
On page 5, line 15, after breeding farms, insert the sentence, provided, that the program shall provide for the use of local heritage breeds, I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
On page 5, line 27, after shrubs, insert the sentence, provided, that the program shall provide for the use of local perennial crops, including endemic and native varieties, or those that can thrive in the country's tropical microclimate, which can be produced by the farmers themselves, I so move, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we accept.
Both amendments having been accepted by the distinguished sponsor, they are hereby approved and adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 5, line 29, between the word animals and insert a, and the phrase, including its integration into regenerative agriculture practices. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept.
Having been accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
On page 6, line 16, between the words in the and propagation, insert the word racing, Moreover, on the same page, line 17, between the word distribution and of, insert a, and the phrase and regenerative farming practices. I so move.
We accept, Mr.
Having been
President.
accepted, same is hereby approved and adopted.
On page 7, after line 24, add a new paragraph, N, to read as follows. Biodiversity, Natural Resources, and Climate Action Program. It will propose and implement the necessary safeguards to ensure that the Philippines meets its obligations under international conventions and agreements, ensure that the country adopts a nature-first approach in any industry development initiative where every effort must be made to avoid causing harm to the existing biodiversity, to align the LPD industry with wider sustainable development outcomes. I so move, Mr. President.
We accept, Mr. President.
Having been accepted, the proposed amendment is hereby approved and adopted.
I thank the graciousness of the good sponsor for accepting all of my amendments. In summary, Mr. President, these amendments are intended to foster a more robust and sustainable agriculture sector that benefits farmers economically and supports ecological balance. Thank you, Mr. President.
Babasahin ko ito.
Chair thanks the distinguished lady from Antique and Malabon. Majority Leader.
I want to make additional amendment, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Additional amendment.
Anterior
Individual.
amendment.
Yeah. Those they did not read, okay.
The distinguished sponsor is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am.
On page 18, line 18, after the word functions, insert the phrase with respect to locally produced milk and milk products. I so move, Mr. President.
So moved. Hearing no, Senator P is recognized.
I would just like to follow that. Can maybe ask the sponsor to? I would also like to take this opportunity to echo the sentiments of our dear colleague, Senator Grace Poe. I'd like to honor Senator Mig Zubiri, my walking partner, which will continue. Senator Mig Zubiri truly shepherded us through very trying times. Many of you will recall the late hours we spent, and I'm sure he and his leadership team spent even more late hours over the past few months, Mr. President. We had many caucuses, many long discussions, and no one can question the Senate President's desire to find a solution. No one can begin to say that not all opportunities, not all roads were explored to find solutions to what may continue to be issues that we will be facing, Mr. President. I truly admire you. And I want to say that I do not know anyone who has the bandwidth for patience and consensus building as your honor has. That bandwidth is something that I would sometimes not just super admire but get frustrated with, because really there is no end to your desire to find a solution to problems, Mr. President. I really want His Honor to remember that, to know that we and I witnessed it and I saw it, and really, Mr. President, that is a trait that we will never forget, and it's a trait that makes you the great leader that you are. I then also would like to commend my brother, Senator Joel Villanueva, who may not have the same style of patience and consensus building as our Senate President, but I had the best laughs with him just to help him get through the difficult task of getting the job done. If our Senate President Zubiri had to work in and outside of the halls of the Senate, our Majority Floor Leader limited, I think in many ways, limited his life, sacrificed his family life, as the Senate President did, to get things moving here in the Senate. And I also admire him from the bottom of my heart for his patience. It did not always show, but we got the work done. The frustration showed on the face many times. Wag na ho nating asahan na magbabago pa yon, and asahan pa natin na it will show in the days to come. But you are truly loved for who you are, Majority Floor Leader. And then, of course, our Senate President Pro Temp, who needs no introduction. She is who she is in the Senate. We would not be who we are today without the invaluable contribution of our Senate President Pro Temp, who adds decorum, style, culture, never hesitates, including our dinner with the President, to share her deep knowledge of history with all of us, and her passion for protecting the environment and the climate. All of these are words of wisdom that I hope the younger generation will be patient enough to absorb and to understand, because each one of us, as exemplified by our Senate President Pro Temp, carries the history and the humanity of the Senate. So thank you, Madam Senate President Pro Temp. And then, of course, to my chief, the chairman of the Committee on Finance, who very patiently sat through 5 years of hearings and debates and floor debates, both on the floor and off the floor, very patiently. And I always wondered why he didn't bother to go home during the hours that he had his vice chairmans on the floor. I would like to think that you trusted us, but you never left, and you should have left and gotten some sleep. But he would always just be in the back watching it from the screen and never leaving during his watch. So again, we're also truly thankful for not just doing your job, but making sure that all of us also had the opportunity to do our job well by accommodating the advocacies that we had, and even finding space for difficult but necessary projects that we all collectively wanted to include in the budget. Thank you for that to my chairman, Senator Angara. And to the rest of the team that completed the leadership of Senate President Zubiri. I know your work could not be done with all of them. They are people who worked with you on and off the floor and on and off hours. So thank you to all of you. Thank you, Mr. President.
The remarks of the lady are duly noted. Majority Floor Leader.
Senator Angara is seeking the floor, Mr. President.
Senator Angara is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not to take up too much time of the plenary at this time, I just want to thank the lady from Taguig for her very kind words, and I loved working with her as the Senior Vice Chair for issues on education and health, which we share a passion for. Thank you very much.
Remarks of the gentleman are noted. Majority Floor Leader.
Just a reminder,
The Senate President
Senate
Zubiri is
Senate
recognized.
President, yes, thank you very much, Senate President. Just a reminder to the Senate President that this team is a hardworking team. We're the only ones here left, Mr. Senate President, so that you know that we're here to support you in to listen to your valedictory, I guess your report to the people of the Republic. If he's going to give a speech, we're here to be with you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senate President Zubiri. I assure you it will be very brief because it's been only 2 days.
Thank you. Mr. President, may I just be allowed to make a very short manifestation?
Senator Villanueva is
Thank you.
recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, just to put on record our sincerest thanks and gratitude to some of our colleagues, namely Senator Poe and Senator Pia Cayetano, for appreciating what we have worked for, the countless hours and the sacrifices, even the extra mile that we needed to walk just to deliver what we can deliver in the name of public service for our country and people. So we just wanted to put on record that we did that not for this particular time where we knew that someday it will be appreciated. Whether it will be appreciated or not, we know that we are doing it for the glory of our God. Thank you, Mr. President.
Remarks of the gentleman are noted. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, there are still 4 items left in our agenda for today. And the gentleman from Valenzuela is seeking the floor, but I don't see the minority leader around, Mr. President. So, to expedite, Mr. President, may we, with the permission of Senator Gatchalian, to expedite the proceedings, may we recognize the gentlelady from Capiz to sponsor in quick succession multiple resolutions, Mr. President, concerning.
Session is suspended.
During our last session, I attended. I tried. Pero namaga yung paa eh.
Majority.
So it's okay, Mr. President. Kahit na mabulok yung paa dito, no problem. Para sa bayan.
You know, under Senator Soto, hindi ganun.
Pare, pastusan na tayo dito eh. Nire-respeto kita.
Don't do that to yourself. Are you in coma? You're not in a coma.
At the risk of...
You know, under Senator Soto, hindi ganun.
Pare, pastusan na tayo dito eh. Nire-respeto kita.
Direktiba? Ba, hindi niya pwedeng utusan ng senador. Magkahiwalay kami ng ano lang yun. Una, bismillah. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yung pong paanyaya ng ating mahal na Pangulo. Lagi naman po yan, magmula po nang ako ay naging senador, lagi pong may paanyaya ang Pangulo para makasama siya sa hapunan. Pero wala po doon na nangyari na pinag-usapan ang nangyari sa Senado at hindi rin po napag-usapan kung kami ay uutusan niya dahil hindi naman po kami siguro dapat niyang utusan dahil hindi naman po kami sa ilalim niya. Yung pong dinner ay may kinalaman lang sa kwentuhan. Wala pong pinag-usapan na patungkol po sa Senado. Wala po.
Ang event charter change?
Wala po. Kung meron pong magbabanggit nun, ako yun. Pero hindi ko naman po nabanggit. Kasi parang casual po na nakakahiya naman magbanggit ng politika. Yung pinag-uusapan, mga anak ko. Tinatanong ng Pangulo, kamusta yung mga anak ko, kamusta yung asawa ko. So parang ang hirap po magpasok ng politika.
ang nag-signal daw po sir ng kudeta against Senator Peace is yung quote-unquote artista block sir, which is yung mga maybe mga lawmakers na dating naging artista. And ang nag-trigger daw yun sir ay yung hindi daw po papayag si Senator Peace na mag-attend virtually si Senator Padilla dahil dun sa pag-upa ng unit sa past. Do you confirm this sir na kayo po or may some sort of naging factor po yun sa pagka-out ni Senator Peace?
Una sa lahat, wala akong reklamo kay Senate President Migs as the Senate President. Wala akong totohanan sumusunod ako dyan Okay naman si Migs Yung nangyari, alam nyo, kami ng PDP, 4 kaming PDP. Okay. Ako, Senator Bongo, Senator Bato, Senator Tolentino. Kami ay isang partido, kaya ang boto namin ay isa lang. Naiintindihan ko si Senator Bato kung bakit nagkaroon ng